Okay, Dr. RJB here again. In the last video that I did, I was talking about um, the weightlifters who use steroids to build their muscle. So the question goes, well, how much muscle can somebody put on? Um, and I guess the question is, do steroids help? Um, do they make the muscle come on faster? Um, so this actually has been studied. Um, uh, there are researchers who have looked into the ability to put on muscle. Um, and one of the researchers said that he and his researcher friends, the most that they've ever seen somebody put on over the course of a year was 17 pounds. That's not a heck of a lot. You know, more or less, you're talking about a pound of weight every couple of weeks, or about a half a pound a week, basically. Now, there have been studies where they've used steroids, like testosterone, and they put on more of that weight, more than that amount of weight over the course of 3 months. Um, so I think there's one of the studies that I looked at that gave somebody a big dose of testosterone, and they were able to put on about 12 or 13 pounds of muscle over the course of 3 months. So it sounds like, oh boy, 12 times 4, that's 50, just about 50 pounds of muscle in a year. Wow, ain't true, unfortunately. Because usually what happens with people who take steroids, they kind of know this, that you put on 20 pounds and then you lose about, 10 or 12 pounds after you come off of it. Because one of the things that steroids do is it kind of makes you swell up. Um, yeah, you got big muscles, but they're all full of water. Um, and so you stop taking your steroids and everything kind of falls apart. Um, One of the football players, I think his name was Rosie Greer, stopped all of his steroids and then talked about it. And he mentioned that when he stopped taking his steroids, he lost 50 pounds. So basically, here was a football player who knew what he was doing best he could, took the steroids to try to put on that muscle. But when he stopped the steroids, he kind of fell apart and lost 50 pounds of muscle. Um, there are pictures on the internet, if you want a good laugh, which is they take a look at the pro bodybuilders, the guys who have won the championships in bodybuilding, and then they look at them after they stop the steroids, and all of them look like normal human beings. Nothing fancy about them. Some cases they just look like old men. They're not that great anymore. Um, uh, because basically, taking those steroids for them, yeah, it does increase their muscle size, but not necessarily add so much more muscle. Um, One of the pro bodybuilders mentioned that he was happy if he could put on 5 pounds of muscle over the course of a year. That's not that much. You're talking about a little bit more than a pound every 2 to 3 months. So muscle building is really not as fast as people might think. There's somebody who talked about the fact that he put on 30 pounds in 30 days. Not possible. Um, if When we do surgery, um, uh, now I have to mention they use scopes these days, so there's not that much of experience with this. But when we do surgery and we cut the skin, one of the things that the surgeons will tell the person when they have a incision is you can't go back to work for 2 months. Now, why is this? The reason for that is that incision does not develop full strength for 2 months. And that's because the body doesn't lay down protein that fast. I've also mentioned to you in one of the other videos that it takes about 2 months to condition yourself. Why is that? Because during conditioning, you're building blood vessels in the muscles so that you have improved circulation. It takes a while for the body to lay down the protein and build the cells that make up those blood vessels. So, it's not a quick process. So you got somebody who's talking about developing, 20 or 30 pounds over the course of 2 to 3 months. They don't know what they're talking about. Now, they may put on 20 or 30 pounds of weight in 2 to 3 months. That's very possible. I can stuff myself, eat too much every day, and man, I could just about put a pound of weight on every day by eating so many calories. Um, it's really not that hard. um, you know, and the thing is that if you eat a lot of carbs, carbohydrates are stored in the muscle as a form called glycogen. Now, glycogen is kind of like a gel. It contains water and the carbohydrates in kind of a solution. So that when you eat a ton of carbs, you also put on a ton of water. And so you can put on about 5 pounds over the course of a day just by eating too many carbs. Of course, if you stop eating the carbs, you'll lose all that water and then weight comes right off. And that's also the reason why people who go on diets notice they lose about 10 pounds the first week. And then after that, it kind of slows down. All you've done is lost a lot of water over the first week. You haven't lost 10 pounds of weight, not 10 pounds of fat. You've lost 10 pounds of water weight. So that's the thing. It takes a while for these things to happen. And about a half a pound of muscle per week is about as much as you can do. There's also the fact that the longer you're in weight training, the less muscle you put on. So that the person who just starts in weight training, a newbie, can put on sometimes as much as 10 or 20 pounds initially over the course of a few months. But then somebody who's been weight training for, let's say, about 5 years, he may be only able to put on maybe 2 or 3 pounds over the same time. And that's basically because the new person has not really done any real exercise, so they're going to be putting on a lot of muscle very quickly. The person who's been working out for 5 years has already put on all that muscle. There's kind of a limit to how much muscle you can put on genetically. And so once you build up a certain amount of muscle, you're pretty much done with that. And you can put on a little bit more, but not a whole lot more. If you happen to have the right genetics, you put on a lot more. For most of us, it's really not going to be all that much more. Okay, so anyhow, this is a description about how to build muscle and how you have to be realistic about it. All right, take care, guys.